Hi guys, it's Rob from Roll Balls, but you knew that already. You're not here to listen to me, you're here to look at an awesome snake that I just made. Let's get after it. Okay, here we go, clutch number 7. This is the Vanilla Clown female to the Pastel Yellow Belly Spotnose Hetford Clown male. There could potentially be some really exciting morphs in here, but we're hoping for a Spotnose Clown. This is my second attempt at a visual Spotnose Clown. This is day 60 and half the eggs are pipped already, so we're going to cut. Let's take a look. And that's one clown sticking its head out for sure. And that one actually looks quite interesting. So let's start off with that one. He's a bit stuck in there. Let me see if I can just open up a little bit so that he can get his head back inside. There you go. Get your head there, there we go. Now I can cut. And I am seeing Spotnose Clown. Oh yes, so that's at least a pastel Spotnose Clown, and I'm thinking either vanilla or yellow belly. Not sure which until it comes out. Let's take a look at this next guy, which does not look like a clown. This one looks like a het. See what it is. This is also pastel. Pastel what? Maybe just pastel, this one. Let's take the next egg. This one is not a clown, but it is Spotnose. Not sure what Spotnose. Spotnose Vanilla or Spotnose Yellow Belly. I'm tempted to say that's Spotnose Vanilla Hetford Clown. And the last egg. So we have one visual clown. Come on, another clown. Another clown. This is a visual clown. Pastel Vanilla Clown. No Spotnose in that, I don't think. So just Pastel Vanilla Clown. So there we go. There are 4 eggs, and what I think we have is a Pastel Hetford Clown, a pastel Spotnose Clown, which could be vanilla or yellow belly. This, I'm tempted to say, is a pastel Spotnose Vanilla Hetford Clown, and this one is a pastel Vanilla Clown. So we got 2 visual clowns, 2 hets, and 1 is the Spotnose. So let's put these back in the incubator and let them come out by themselves. Awesome! Okay, let's look at dad for the clutch. This is the same dad as we used for the first clutch. This is Pastel Spotnose Yellow Belly Hetford Clown, and he is the 2nd generation male that I talked about in a previous video. And the female for this clutch is a Vanilla Clown female. Here they are together. So this is a much easier genetic combination than clutch 1 to sort out what we have in the babies. So this is Vanilla Clown female, this is Pastel Spotnose Yellowbelly Hetfer Clown male, and they are the parents. So this guy here shares 50% of his genetic material with grandfather. This female here is a totally unrelated female, so their offspring will have half of his genetic material and half of hers, which means by the time we get to the third generation, because I used an unrelated female, the babies only share 25% of their DNA with the original grandparents. So when we talk about inbreeding or line breeding, because I've used unrelated females at each pairing, we are not inbreeding and we are not line breeding. In fact, we are reducing the amount of common DNA between each successive generation of offspring and the original parents. The next generation of offspring, if I use a unrelated male or female again, they will only share 12.5% of their genetic material with the original grandparents. So each time we use an unrelated snake in successive pairings, we halve the common genetic material from the original first generation grandparents. So we are not inbreeding and we are not line breeding in this project. We are using unrelated females for each new generation. So let's get a look at these babies all together, the 4 babies, now that they are out of the egg. And I think you can see immediately the Spotnose Clown. Yes, even without the distinctive head stamps, the spot nose in these animals is obvious. We have 2 animals, 1 clown and 1 non-clown, which are both spot nose, and then we have 1 clown and 1 non-clown which do not contain spot nose, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. But let's have a look at the animal that I was trying to get. This animal is very, very bright, but you can see immediately that this animal contains spot nose. The spot nose pattern in this is unmistakable even without the head stamp, and characteristic of Spotnose is the very dark outlines to the alien heads. You can see it's almost like somebody's taken a marker pen and just outlined the alien heads with a dark marker pen. Very characteristic of Spotnose, very high contrast alien heads, but you can see that this guy has a very washed out head. Now obviously Pastel is involved in this, but the washed out head that's so white, there is only one combination that can do this, and that is Pastel Vanilla combined gives the washed out head. You will see the same thing in this animal here, the very, very washed out head. There's only one combination from this pairing that can do that, and that is Pastel Vanilla. This animal is a het, and you can see immediately exactly the same spot nose pattern, with somebody having taken a marker pen and outlined all the alien heads with the marker pen. So this guy here, if we look at the head, is obviously Pastel. It's spot nose, but it's very bright. There's something else in here, and I don't think it's Vanilla because the head is not blushed out enough. I think this guy, the extra gene in this one, is Yellowbelly. And if we have a look on the belly, if I can just get the camera to focus for you, you can see the characteristic digital markings along the edge of the belly here that's characteristic of Yellowbelly. Not much yellow on the belly because it's pastel, it's very washed out. So this animal here is a Spotnose Yellowbelly. You can see the Yellowbelly on the sides, and you can see from the belly again the characteristic digital pattern, and the head stamp is quite clearly Spotnose. This guy here is exactly the same snake but with Pastel, and it's also Hetfer Clown, but you can see the characteristic pattern on here. There is no mistaking Spotnose in this guy here. So same snake as this one. This is Spotnose Yellowbelly. This is Spotnose Yellowbelly with Pastel and its het for Clown. So this one we've decided is Pastel Spotnose Vanilla, and I'll just show you the difference between Pastel Spotnose. Looks like it has a much higher contrast head stamp than this one with Vanilla, and I'm comparing it to, I couldn't find a Pastel Vanilla, but I found a Pastel Fire Spotnose Clown, and Fire and Vanilla are very, very similar. So you can see this animal looks much more like the Firefly Spotnose, and so this one I'm thinking is Pastel Spotnose Vanilla, and it's a male. This one we've already determined is more than likely Pastel Spotnose Yellowbelly, het for Clown. This one is quite balled up here, but you can see that it has a very pastel-like reduced pattern. The head stamp is screaming Pastel Vanilla, and you can see that Vanilla actually makes the alien heads towards the tail coalesce. So this is Pastel Vanilla Clown. And this one, another non-clown, it's het, and I think you can see that this one does not contain Spotnose. The alien heads are nowhere near regular enough. This has a typical pastel head stamp, no Spotnose in this, so I think this is just Pastel het for Clown. And this guy here is a male, the het is a female, and of course this one is also a male. This one I have not sexed yet. Now you can see that this one is actually quite a bit smaller than its siblings. So we're going to talk a little bit about some medical or veterinary issues. This snake here could not get out of its egg. I noticed when I cut the egg that it had not fully absorbed its yolk sac, and the yolk sac was actually stuck to the inside of the egg. So this animal was trapped inside its egg, trapped by the umbilicus, and could not get out. So it was necessary to make a small medical procedure. Very easy to do. You can see that this guy still has part of the umbilicus. You cannot cut this directly because the yolk sac has a very, very rich blood supply. So what you need to do is take a small piece of dental floss and just tie off the umbilicus. Not too tightly, just a double overhand knot. If you used waxed dental floss, you can tie this off, and then you can cut on the yolk side. If you cut before you tie off, there's a lot of blood, and this animal is already weak because it hasn't absorbed all its yolk, and sometimes the blood loss can kill it. So make sure you tie off before you cut. If you don't cut, the yolk sac goes rotten and the animal dies from septicemia very, very quickly. If I had not cut this umbilicus, this snake would already be dead. It would be trapped inside the egg, the yolk sac would have gone rotten, and it would have died of septicemia. But you can see that this animal is perfectly fine now. The umbilicus has now gone white, it's reabsorbed all the blood from that, and that will drop off in due course, and this animal will be perfectly fine. So there's a small tip for you. Tie off the umbilicus, cut on the yolk side, and then let the animal rest on just this clean, wet paper until it reabsorbs all the blood vessels from the remaining stump of the umbilicus, and that will drop off all by itself. You will save the snake's life. This snake would be dead if I hadn't done that, but it's perfectly healthy. A 5-minute procedure, very, very simple, but if you do it right, it does save the snake's life in a case like that. Now, while we're on this subject here, if you remember from the first clutch, we had some babies that we were not sure whether they had Spotnose in them or not. And does this clutch actually help us? Well, certainly it does. Spotnose is much more obvious in these animals here. We have two animals that definitely are Spotnose that we can compare, and we have just a straight pastel with no spot nose that we can compare to that first clutch as well. So let's do that. So here is the first animal from that first clutch, and you can see quite clearly now that the alien head pattern is actually much more like this guy. See the comparison there with the alien heads? Much more like this guy than this guy. You can see the very irregular alien heads on this pastel. So, does this help us? Yes. I'm almost certain that this baby from the first clutch, which is a male, is actually Super Pastel Spotnose. And the head stamp also confirms that. You can see on the pastel, the head stamp is arrow shaped and does not have the dents and hoof shaped head stamp that the Spotnose does. So here is Pastel, here is Super Pastel Spotnose. Let's have a look at the second baby. So here are the two from the first clutch, and I think you can see that the patterns on them are very, very similar. The head stamp, the pattern's very similar, and again you can see that it almost looks as if somebody has taken a marker pen and outlined the alien heads on here. So the patterns very, very similar on these two animals, and I think you'll agree, very, very similar to this Spotnose het clown from the new clutch. So almost certainly these two animals here are actually Spotnose. I'm almost 100% certain now that these both have Spotnose in them. They're both Super Pastel Spotnose. So how cool is that, guys? We get a second clutch of eggs from the same father, and it helps us to identify what was in that first clutch, and I think we can now safely identify Spotnose, having quite clearly established what the Spotnose looks like in a het for clown baby that he produced. This has helped us tremendously with our identification of the two babies from the first clutch that we weren't sure about. I'm almost certain that they are in fact Spotnose. So here's the prize. This is our Pastel Spotnose Vanilla Clown male, and whilst it's taken us 4 or 5 years to get to this point, this is just a stepping stone. This is no big deal. This guy here is just a stepping stone. What we need this guy for is to be able to plug him into some of our other clown projects, and the power of this guy is what we can actually make with him, not so much what this guy is, but what we can make with him. And it's been a long time in the making, but this is now one of the major stepping stones that we needed to up our clown game to the next level. So we got one. Fantastic. Now, as I mentioned, these babies share only 25% of their DNA with the original grandparents. It would not be a good idea to pair these animals back to their parents because they share 50% of their genetic material. And if there is any defect at all in that genetic material, and it's doubled up in the offspring because a lot of the genetic material is common, we can have issues. Most of the time we get away with it, and ball pythons are extremely resilient to Lyme breeding, but we would not want to pair these babies back to their parents if we could avoid doing it, and we certainly don't need to do that. That is not the plan. We're going to pair these to completely different females. It would also not be a good idea to pair these babies to babies from the first clutch, because they also share 50% of their DNA because they share the same father. So we wouldn't want to do that either. But pairing these babies back to the grandparents, they only share 25% of their genetic material. We could probably get away with that. That is probably much safer than pairing back to the original parents. So there you go. Somebody did ask me about Lyme breeding and inbreeding, and you can see that none of these animals are inbred. They have been paired. The different generations have used totally unrelated snakes, and this third generation now only shares 25% of its DNA with the original grandparents. So not line breeding, not inbreeding. In fact, we are mixing up the DNA and producing much genetically stronger animals because of it. We wouldn't want to pair them to the other clutch. We wouldn't want to pair them back to their parents, but pairing them back to their grandparents at this stage, they only share 25% of their DNA. Probably wouldn't want to do that either, but at this stage, being third generation, you can probably get away with that. So there we go, guys. This is a project that's been several years in the making, and this is just a stepping stone. This is just the start of what we can do with Spotnose Clown. So let me leave you, if this animal doesn't bite me, let me leave you with a close-up shot of the prize. This is Pastel Spotnose Vanilla Clown Male. What an awesome guy this is. Wow. We got one. We hit the jackpot. Now don't forget, I also have another clutch coming in the next few days, which is also another shot at Spotnose, and that is using the sister of the male that we just used. So that male's sister, second generation female, also het for clown, was paired to a completely unrelated male clown this time, and we'll get a third clutch, and let's see if we can produce any more Spotnose Clown babies. Heaven knows there are people queuing up for these. So let's see if we can make some more. But we got one, and it's a male. So within a year we will be able to use this guy in our clown projects, and we have Spotnose into the clown. Fantastic. Okay guys, that's the Spotnose Clown. We made one. Fantastic. Now we need to see what we can make with it. So that's it for this episode. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe, and we'll see you for the next clutch.